Well, good afternoon. I want to welcome everyone to our City of Little Rock Special Call Board of Directors meeting for Thursday, December the 26th. We want to welcome those that are here in attendance as well as watching online. Madam Clerk, if you would call the roll.
Director Miller. Director Richardson. Director Peck. Director Hines. Director Lewis. Director Wyrick. Director Compuris. Director Phillips. Director Adcock. Vice Mayor Webb.
Here.
Mayor Scott.
Present. May we please stand for a pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm sorry, we didn't start with an invocation like we normally do. Director Phillips.
Oh, no problem. Take a moment to humble ourselves. Dear Lord, we come to you recognizing you as our creator and our guiding light. We ask you to continue to guide us as a city, city officials, city staff, to continue to do the work on behalf of the people. We ask for peace and understanding and wisdom through this time as we make critical decisions about how to operate our city going forward. We'll continue to ask your protection and your blessings over everyone in and visiting the city of Little Rock during this holiday season. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Members of the board, I'm going to give a few updates as we begin this meeting. As it relates to the budget, as we saw or have seen at our last meeting in regards to, number one, the police contract has been voted upon. It's already been reviewed by the city attorney and going through that process of the signatures I shared last week. That's been the case for the past 2 weeks. Also, as we shared last week, that it was a non-monetary issue as it relates to the fire union and their contract. As of this morning, it became a monetary issue that was reported to us. And so we addressed that monetary issue. And as of right now, I think there are some final negotiations. So the monetary issue that arose this morning, at least came to our knowledge this morning, that had not been the case, has been addressed. What does that mean? The salaries, not the salaries, but the raise increase will match police. We are still holding firm to no on the 4896 schedule unless there's a 70% workforce that votes for it. So nothing's changed except for the monetary issue that became an issue this morning. So there's still no longer a monetary issue as it relates to negotiations with the fire. So I want to make sure we're very clear because it became to my knowledge this morning that it all of a sudden became a monetary issue and not just a schedule because we had been addressing the monetary and it was always told to us that it was more about the schedule. And so we've now addressed the monetary issue. The salaries or the raises will match. And I hasten to say salaries because they're on different steps between police and fire, but the raises will match each other. So police will have a 1-year contract of 5%, 2-year contract of 5% in both years, and the fire will resemble exactly that. So that's, again, the new fire monetary issue is no longer on the table. Still, if there is an impasse, it'll be a result of a non-monetary issue as it relates to the schedule, which we won't change unless the federal mediator tells us to. So that's number one. Number two, for scheduling purposes, in the event, we know there's going to be, to the public, there's going to be a lot of things going on here in the next few minutes. But in the event, two things. One, if we're not able to pass the budget today, the goal is still to stay within our rule, our self-imposed law and rule. And so to the press, if we're not able to pass it with here in the next few minutes or so or hour, we will have another special call board meeting at 2 o'clock. and another special call board meeting at 2:30. And I'll get into that scheduling piece of that to get those readings on the board. So that's number two, but I also believe we have an ordinance that may alleviate that from Director Peck has prepared as well from that standpoint. Any questions before we, Director Hines?
You're not on.
You got to press, Director, I'm sorry.
So Mayor, a quick question. As you just stated, federal mediator, has an impasse been declared?
Yes, I haven't received the email, but if you all recall, we met on Monday, the 23rd. Before we weren't aware of it because well, technically, I guess we were aware of it, but our email was sent in the morning before we got in this, and we didn't see it. And then until that time, we walked in, and there was an impasse, and we did discuss the impasse being declared. So official impasse was declared via email the morning of the 23rd. I don't know if the membership is aware of that, but it was done.
Okay. Thank you for the
So-
clarity.
Yes. Would you say, Mr. Attorney?
Mayor, I appreciate the attempt to give the 2 hours notice for a 2 o'clock and a 2:30 special meeting, but until this meeting is over, you can't call a special meeting.
Sure, no problem. Just
Recess, you could recess until 2 and then recess, but you'll still be in the same meeting.
okay, but after this meeting, I'll call a meeting.
Right.
All right, thank you. Director Peck?
Thank you. And I realize that now that I don't have the votes to do this, but I'd asked City Attorney Tom Carpenter to prepare the ordinance that everybody has in front of them. It seems like this is not the first time we've encountered this sort of end-of-the-year problem with the budget. And so I asked Tom to draw this up. I believe I need 8 votes. I believe I won't have the 8 votes to do it. I would hope that we would entertain this at some point in time to give us the proper amount of time to prepare. Just like the state, they don't have to pass the budget until February 1st. I would like to see the same thing at the city level. So there is that. But I did want to say a couple of things about the firefighters, the impasse, the monetary, the whole thing. And I see a room full of firefighters again, and thank you. One observation I want to make quickly is last night, Mayor, you were there. We had the lighting of the big menorah over there in the West Little Rock, and as Vice Mayor Webb was leaving, the BJ was there, and thank you for coming. She said that as we were all spending time celebrating the holiday with the families, our families, a couple of fire trucks passed with, sirens blazing on the way to possibly putting themselves in harm's way again while we're all going about our daily business. This 11th hour change, is it the money? Is it the scheduling? We shouldn't even be involved in this, but we are involved in this because, as I stated a few days ago, we have firefighters who are our constituents. I bet there's not anybody, a ward-specific director here, that does not. And so I hear these things, and I listen to these things because every city employee is important to me, but especially our first responders. So the 5%, is that good? That's part of it. But there are other things, there are other ramifications that do affect the budget, and I am not prepared until the firefighters are happy to approve anything. And I'm sorry to be stubborn about that, but that's just the way it is, and I will stand by that no matter how many special meetings are called.
Thank you so much, Director Peck. Director Phillips?
Thank you, Mayor. And Director Peck, I just wanted to reiterate this for the people in the audience and watching online. It seems like on Monday we were talking about a couple separate things. Obviously, the mayor's in negotiation about raises and schedule, but I think you brought up some things that are in a separate bucket, if we will, as it relates to issues that are happening at the fire department. And my recommendation is that we have a separate meeting in January, a policy discussion where we actually go through those things and try to figure out if there's money in the reserve to address those, I guess, structural building related issues that's separate, from my understanding, from the budget.
I
So
agree.
yeah, I've separated those two, and I think you can do both. I think we can vote on the budget and address those issues, because those are not budget issues for 2025 per se.
I completely agree. If I, may I respond to him, Mayor?
Yes.
I completely agree, Director Phillips, and I'm excited about the policy discussion. And I know we've spoken to the chief, and those things will get addressed. But, you know, I feel like the firefighters are being cast in a bad light. That they are these obstinate, stubborn people that are going to hold up people's raises, and they're not playing fairly. And I think it's unjust the way they have been portrayed, and by some of us sitting right here. And so they need somebody to speak for them. And I'm speaking for them. And I think some of my other colleagues are speaking for them. And it's deeper than that. And I'm not even qualified to get into the deepness of it. I hope we can hear from a couple of them. I think have been some cards filled out by a couple of the firefighters. Again, I can be a stubborn person, but I'm also a very open-minded person. I've thought about this at length. This is not a sudden decision, but again, I'm going to stand by my promise that I'm not going to support this budget until the firefighters are good with it.
Director
Good
Hines?
with their deal.
Sorry,
Yes.
Director Hines.
Tom, please refresh my memory. Have we, in the recent past, I guess since I've been on the board in the last 14 years, have we had an issue with one of our public safety unions declaring an impasse? Do I remember that the police at one point had an impasse several years ago?
Remember, I'm older. Many years ago, there was an impasse with the police department, and there was even an attempt at a referendum to provide for binding arbitration, which the Arkansas Supreme Court said is not applicable to local governments. We are not typically involved with the negotiations while they're going on, so I don't know if there have been impasses or not. I know of that one.
Okay. Well, the reason I bring that up
And that was
is because
35
the
years
current,
ago.
if I remember the language in our current contracts with police and fires, that if there's an impasse declared, that the current contract will go on until a new contract's agreed to. Is that what the language says? Am I remembering that right?
I don't have the language for this year's contract in front of me.
Okay. All right. I'm just trying to figure out where we are from that standpoint. That's
I can answer that you have had a situation in the past where there was not agreement with one of the bargaining units, and I don't remember which one, and the contract continued by agreement into the next year until there was an agreement.
okay. And I'm assuming we passed a budget in the middle of that impasse, but because I don't recall us ever holding one up. All right. Thank you.
Director Peck?
Thank you, Director Phillips. One other thing I wanted to point out, it was actually something that you brought up about the policy discussion, to discuss the problems in many of the older fire stations that we talked about, which some of them are very, very serious. You know, perhaps if we can take a little more time to look at the budget, we could make some budget cuts to help solve some of these problems. I know the emergency fund is limited, what, $8 to $10 million? It's for emergencies. Some of these things are emergencies, but I think that also would give us an opportunity to take a look at the budget to address some of these really, truly immediate health, safety, and livability concerns that exist in our fire stations.
Since Mayor not here, I'm gonna call on myself.
I'll call on you, Director Phillips.
Thank you, Director Peck. I understand that, but to me, and obviously we're talking conceptually here and not specifics, but if you're talking about cutting, then that means somebody in some department is gonna lose a job, lose jobs, if you're talking about making cuts to the budget. So to me, the way to resolve those issues is to use a reserve fund, so we're not putting people that's working on behalf of the city out of work. I'm against that. I'm not trying to get rid of folks. So I wouldn't want to make a cut. I would rather use the reserve fund to address these issues once we figure out what those issues are. I know you presented what you said you heard. I hadn't been contacted about that. I'm not saying it's not true, but I would like to have a meeting where we're talking specifically about those issues so we can all hear together, hear the same thing about what needs to be addressed, and then probably hear from, I guess, Director Sarpy about what's in the reserve and what we can do and have a full discussion. I wouldn't want to change the budget cuts from some other department to fix those issues for the fire department. I'd rather use the reserve funds to do that. That would be my response.
What's the question? What's the question?
Well, Director, I was mentioning that to have a policy discussion to discuss some of the structural issues in the fire department at some of the fire stations. Director Peck, if I'm summing up her statement correctly, said that maybe if we took more time to look at the budget, we can address that through the budget by making some cuts to the budget to address some of those structural issues. And I responded saying, I don't want to make cuts to the budget. I'm not trying to put people out of work or decrease staff. I do understand that those are needs for the fire department. And if we have reserve funds, that's what I'd rather use those to address them instead of cutting the budget. Then that's to catch you up, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Members of the board, again, Fire has just reached out to us and they have accepted the offer that we've given, so they're getting ready to sign that contract.
That just happened right now?
Yeah, that's why I stepped out.
Oh, okay.
And I'm sure the fire membership will share with the membership what the offer is, but I don't mind sharing it right now. It's exactly what we stated with one caveat. The 4896, which is the non-monetary issue, it still, as we share, will hold firm to it not happening unless there was 70%. And what we agreed to with that is that it still will take 70% to happen. And also, if the 70% is yielded, then there can be a trial in 26. But again, the governor is the 70% rule of the workforce. If the 70% of the workforce doesn't say yes, then it doesn't happen. But they've accepted that, tentatively. Director Adcock.
You got to press the button.
They've all come twice now to speak to us, and I feel like that we should hear from them.
We got more than just firefighters here to speak, so I want to make certain. Yeah, we do have cards. I'm trying to figure out. Yeah.
I put some of the cards at your desk
Yes.
before we started. I don't know if any more were turned in after. Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yes, you need to.
Director Miller.
Director Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. Sounds like good news as far as the, excuse me, the budget is concerned. Certainly from what the firefighters leadership has said they would accept and take it to the membership for a vote. But tell me how that affects the budget at this point. I mean, if it's going to be 5%, police is going to get 5%. Where's this money coming from? Is it part of the reserve that we already have this in there that I'm not sure.
Yes,
I
can
wasn't
walk
in the
through.
negotiations, obviously, so.
So just for clarity, and many board members may be aware of this or may not be aware of this. Historically, the city, sometimes it happens, sometimes it does. It's not a uniform, but historically, the contract or negotiations are not complete by the time the budget is passed. That's happened over the past 6 years, and it also predates me from that standpoint. And so what generally happens is we kind of know what the cushion is on the money amount, and that's generally kind of agreed to before the budget. We've gotten to that, so we can't go into too much in sharing negotiation strategy in detail, but the money's there. It won't have any effect. Now, it'll create some other financial strain some other places, but the money's there. And then ultimately, one of the things that we feared, and again, it's a non-monetary issue because you can't determine tomorrow until tomorrow gets here. One of the main concerns, three main concerns with the 4896. Number one, the only places in Arkansas that has happened, there are very significantly smaller departments in the state that have done it, not the size of the Little Rock Fire Department here in the state of Arkansas. So that's one issue. We have other impacts based on what's been told to me from our fire management team. But also the impact that we most are concerned about is overtime. Clearly, we always have overtime embedded in the budgets of both police and fire. However, this, again, we don't know until we know, could create even more of a strain on the overtime budget. Let's say somebody who's on the 96 hours off, and they decide to take off or they get sick for whatever reason, it creates an increase in the overtime budget of existing staff that may still be on there, or we need to stay there, so that it could really bust our overtime budget. So technically today, it's not a monetary issue, but it could be a monetary issue, and that's the reason why we wanted to make certain the entire workforce was for it. And then there are other issues with it, but we don't want to go too much into the negotiation. But
Well, thank you, Mayor. I certainly, when I hear,
I wasn't finished.
what?
I'm sorry.
Mine was still on.
I thought you asked your question, did you not?
No. I think that we are being very rude if we do not allow them to speak. And now you brought up something else. It is going to be a problem, maybe, because we're going to pay them the $5 an hour, and yet you haven't got it in our budget.
Yes, ma'am.
We are pushing so fast that I think that we are not listening to lots of the people that have come twice now to speak to us. And I would like to hear from their leadership.
And they will
have
speak.
agreed to this.
Director Adcock, everybody will speak. We're just having a conversation as the process normally goes. We haven't got to that point yet. You're fine, Director? All right. Madam Clerk, if you will read for the third reading.
An ordinance to provide for and to adopt the 2025 budget for the city of Little Rock, Arkansas for the period beginning January 1, 2025 and ending December 31st, 2025 to appropriate resources and uses for every expenditure item and operating fund to declare an emergency and for other purposes. Third and final reading.
Third reading, Director Hines.
Mayor, I'm going to propose an amendment that was passed out. There was an update given. The items in it are creating a line item for the cost of your security detail so that we can see it in the budget in the OEA for $300,000, and also to eliminate the chief of staff, chief equity officer, chief education officer, and the senior advisor to the mayor and chief strategy officer, with those monies to be reallocated to split evenly between homeless outreach and code enforcement. That's my motion.
There's a motion from Director Hines, a second from Director Adcock. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Nays have it. Director Peck.
I'm sorry to keep beating this dead horse, but I believe they're in conversation now, but I would like to hear from leadership about the negotiations. I would just feel a whole lot better, and I'm prepared to vote yes if Mr. Stallings could come speak to us. I believe he's filled out a card.
Is sure.
Oh, he's there. He's hiding.
And so if we go to Mr. Stallings, just members of the board also make sure, you know, we got a whole lot of folks here right here. So Mr. Stallings, we'll start with you first. Director Phillips.
Yeah, just from a logistical standpoint, Mayor, we just had the third reading, right, Clerk? So we're at the comment period
Yes,
anyway, right?
anyway. Mhm.
Okay, so we're going to hear from all the cards.
Yes, so residents and team members who are here in the room, what the process is, after 3 readings, we hear from the public, whoever signs a card, and so we're at that process. We'll go with Mr. Stallings and then Mr. Shepherd after Mr. Stallings.
All right, thank you. So yeah, this has been a long, drawn-out process, but we have generally agreed to something in principle, and I believe there They're working on the language right now, members of our negotiating team are. So if you feel like you should vote with your conscience, we don't need to be holding y'all up. That being said, there's a lot was made about the reasons why we're here, and it y'all kept being told, and the media kept being told, and the public kept being told that it's about a staffing change and or a schedule change, and that's not it. The reason that we're here is that through this budget process, through the negotiations process, through all these processes, the men and women of the fire department they've reached the limit of what they're willing to accept. It's not just that. That is a small piece of it, because what we're being asked to accept right now, it's not adequate. Not just for us, but for the citizens that we serve, because every decision that's made that affects our lives is being made by politicians or somebody who's appointed by a politician. And right now, those decisions, they're making our jobs less safe. And if our job is less safe, then the citizens and the public that we serve are also less safe. And so we're seeing another budget process go by, and again, it looks like the fire department's not a priority. Firefighters aren't a priority. And I know that half the budget is public safety, but we're half the personnel. Fire trucks cost $1 million, and cops need a lot of equipment. We need a lot of equipment. So obviously, it should be a significant chunk of the budget. But when you're looking at the stations that we're dealing with, and you're looking at the apparatus issues that we're dealing with, I know fire trucks are on the way. There's a handful that are going to be here soon. There's a handful that are going to be here soon, toward the end of the year. But that's a stopgap measure to cover up a problem that is just going to return in a few years. It's just going to return if we don't change our behavior in the way that we treat public safety. And so, I didn't want to, through this process, I didn't want to have to go back and look at the men and women behind me and say, we didn't fight hard enough for the things that matter to you, because I know them, I know their families, I know their kids, and so it matters to us that they're treated fairly, and it matters to us that they are safer in their job. Showing up to a house fire on a pickup truck is not safe. Showing up to a high-rise fire with no ladder is not safe. But because I know them, I know what they're going to do, and that's why this issue is so urgent, because I know that when we show up, we're there to help. We know we're there to help, and even if we don't have all the equipment we need, we're still going to do everything we can, unsafe or not. And so if there's anything that can be done to make their living conditions at a fire station safer, if there's anything that can be done that makes their working conditions on a fire ground safer, there is no greater urgency than now to do that. And yes, we have agreed in principle on something, but that doesn't mean that the issues with our apparatuses and our stations and our equipment and all that stuff goes away. That's still a very urgent issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stallings. And to the public and the viewers online, again, as we stated last week, there was no monetary issue of concern presented to us until the last hour. We addressed that. We're grateful to have agreement now that there was no monetary concern and was not one until this morning. We have been able to address it. We're grateful that we were able to get that addressed. Mr. Shepard?
There was a monetary concern.
That's
we haven't agreed on that yet.
That's what we just said. Mr. Shepard?
Good evening, Mayor, City Board members. I came prepared today with a speech if we had not been able to come to terms about a contract agreement. Thank God that we have. I think it's important that the city and the citizens see us united in an effort to take care of our family. I also wanted to challenge today city board members who have said they've spoken with fire department leadership and union leaders as well. There's another sector, another group of people on the job, Little Rock Black Firefighters Organization. So oftentimes I hear people say they've gotten firefighters' opinion. Myself as the president, I haven't gotten any phone calls. Vice President Vernon hadn't gotten any phone calls. So I would challenge you guys before you make certain remarks to make sure you get an all-encompassing opinion about some things on the fire department and not just one opinion. Like I said, I am excited about securing a raise for our families. As it stands, and that's why it's important that I say that there's a difference in opinion sometimes. Our organization voted no for the 4896 schedule. So I'm not sure if anybody on the board knows that. I'm not sure if anybody cares. But it was narrowly passed. So that means half of the population on the fire department did not want that schedule. And I would think that would be something that people would pay attention to. Other than that, I resent the fact that we've taken so much of you guys' time during the holidays. I am glad that it looks like it's coming to an end. And I just want to thank you for the opportunity to speak. And thanks for the opportunity to say something.
Thank you, Mr. Shepherd. I do know there are some folks downstairs, and to give leeway to keep this, keep us running efficiently, Representative Joyce Springer, and then signed up. And if you want to speak or not speak, let us know. And then Larry Hicks, I believe he's downstairs. He's next up.
Good afternoon. I'm not sure that I need to speak. As I understood a motion that just passed, there was a motion to amend the ordinance, and that motion failed.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I don't need to speak. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Judge Marion Humphrey.
I don't need to speak either, same point.
All right. Kara Wilkins. She
Thank you, Mayor Scott and the board. I do appreciate the opportunity to speak. I am glad that the previous ordinance or the previous amendment did fail, but I do need to come and speak to this board about the inefficiencies that happen here. Part of the reason why you're having this conversation still with the fire department, part of the reasons why we're having some of these side conversations about amendments, these things could be done efficiently if they happen behind the scenes. You can call the mayor, you can call other people, you can call your constituents. You should have reached out to the Black Firefighters Association. Those things can happen offline. I do not appreciate, as a constituent, having to come down here for a proposed possible amendment on something that could have been rectified well before this. You can talk to the mayor and find out why we need a chief of staff. You know why we need a chief of staff. Director Hines, let's not do this today. Those are things that I wish this board could come to a consensus on so you all could be more effective. Please, let's not go into 2025 with this same mindset of doing things the way that we've always done them. You all need to begin to work together so that we can use this time as board members more efficiently and effectively so that you're not wasting my time. Thank you. Have a great day.
Mr. Larry Hicks.
Thank you, Mayor Scott, and members of the board. I'm just going to be brief and say that there's no substitute whatsoever for the people who are responsible for keeping us safe every day. Police officers in the fire department, they are essential in terms of doing that, and I would hope that from this point forward, we can all come to a consensus on that very needed question that you may have. I came here today to support passing of the budget and also supporting Mayor Scott in his efforts to need those who are going to provide assistance to him in administering government. Government is a very difficult thing to administer, whether people know that or not. And he has to have whom he selects in order to be a part of it. Director Hines, this is no disparagement of you, but your practice has been one of which it always seems to fall in line with something racially oriented, and that's disturbing. And in 2025, a quarter of a century that we're into the 21st century of our lives, we should be better than that. And I would hope that you give reconsideration to what it requires and takes in order for us to be able to administer a government that's going to be effective for not some, but all of the people. Thank you.
Ms. Barbara Lunoy? Lonnie, I couldn't read it, I apologize. Ms. Barbara?
Thank you, Mayor. Everyone. I'm Barbara London with the NAACP president. I would just like to reiterate that everything is looking pretty good for the citizens of Little Rock, but our fire department, our police department, as we already know, do need a substantial raise. And I just want to say that is why we should have voted for the sales tax increase. Thank you.
There you go. Amen, Ms. Lonnie. I'm with
Thank you, Ms. Lonnie. Mr. Johnny Reap.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. Members of the board, I appreciate the service you do to this community. I'm going to change my speech, and it's going to be very brief now that you've settled officially, right? So I just want to offer you some perspective. In this very building, back in the 80s, when I was a union officer, Malin Martin led this city to the greatest event for labor and public employees in this state, where Malin Martin said, I want to sign a written contract with the firefighters. And he did so that day with Personnel Director Ron Lloyd, Britt Rice, city attorneys, fire chief. Tom, I don't remember you were there that day or not. Okay. I'm a little older than you. But anyway, isn't it great that Malin set such a precedent that I said to many people, Malin Martin could be governor of this state. And I always cherished the memory of working with him. But to put another twist on it, you have to remember that I am 77 years old, and I was 10 years old when my dad bought our first black and white television, and I could see Orville Faubus on TV every night, ripping the heart out of this wonderful state. So to see Malin come in and declare justice as the way we should live in Arkansas, and now we have to play these games occasionally, we should remember what Malin Martin stood for and how he said, no more games. Let's talk straight. Let's get business done. Let's get on with the job of protecting the citizens of Little Rock. Thank you very much for the job that you do.
Thank you, Mr. Reap. Mr. Jonathan Nunn. He may be downstairs. Vicky Hatter. School board member Vicky Hatter. Apologize.
Well, first of all, thank you guys for everything that you guys do. The reason I'm coming down have already been addressed. It was the budget amendment. But I do want to just speak to the overall commitment that like the city have pledged and given right to the district. It is very valuable. As you guys know, we have the community school model here. And then the city has a large part that they play in that with not only partnerships but also just overall commitment to that, to help strengthen our Little Rock school district. And so I appreciate you for first mayor creating that position, but I also appreciate the city board for voting to have that position. So I'm going to pause right there, and I think that all of the other positions are well needed. On the sales tax issue, when it comes back, if it comes back, I would urge you all to not brand it as a mayor's tax, because it's not a mayor's tax. It is a city's tax. And so right when we're looking at improvement of the city, we know that it takes dollars to do that. And then right when we're talking about public safety, ensuring that our first responders have all of their equipment, we all know that first responders, that is a very costly operation to run. And so we know that they are going to constantly need upgrades, amendments, and maintenance. And so so whenever that comes back, I would just urge you guys to make sure you're framing it correctly to where it doesn't present bias to where people are voting towards a person and not their best interest, and so they vote against their best interest. And lastly, what I would say is our youth really need things to do, opportunities beyond the school day and then beyond work hours. And so with that city tax, that part with the youth complex, sporting complex, that would have provided opportunities for our youth. And so whenever it comes back, we all are not going to agree on everything, because I didn't agree on everything about it, but at the same time, we all are going to find things that we do agree, and I think that we should lean in on that and then support based on issues and not based on people that are pushing the concern and amplifying voices, most likely of those that are not heard. And so I am happy to hear that you all are made progress with the fire, and then I look forward to hearing about more progress that you guys will make. Thank you.
Thank you. Jonathan, and then we'll go to Sarah Argue, and then after that, Scott Hamilton.
I just wanted to come in here and thank the board members that voted against that amendment. I'll keep it very brief and won't belabor the point. Many of those roles and those positions are people that I've engaged with. I myself own 2 businesses in this city, have done affordable housing development, rehab, and being able to navigate code enforcement, navigate some of the various interfaces of this city has been instrumental by some of the engagement of those people, helping to reach demographics that have not been previously engaged. So thank y'all for that.
Thank you, Mr. Nunn. Ms. Argue?
Thank you so much. Sarah Argue, resident of Ward 5. I am an education researcher with the University of Central Arkansas College of Education, and I also wanted to speak to the proposed amendment. I think it is very important that our board understand the vitality that our chief education officer adds to the city of Little Rock. Many cities across the nation that have some of its best educational outcomes actually embed their school districts within their city. I'm in no way proposing such an idea, but we have tapped upon a beautiful idea that creates an efficiency within our city government that creates this liaison between our city and our city resources and services and our local schools. And this is something that we need, and we have done it efficiently, and we can continue to do it efficiently. And I think it is particularly important that we understand that contribution that that role makes to what our city does and how it is able to do it for our children. So I did want to speak to that. I am glad that the amendment is no longer on the table, but I think it is important that we consider, again, how we strengthen that relationship, because we know that that produces better outcomes for our children, and I think that is the ultimate goal for everyone in this room. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Scott Hamilton, and then Ms. Kimberly Lee.
Yes, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, Mayor and City Board members, for your service. We appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak before you all and share the thoughts that the citizens of Little Rock have. But equally and probably more important, I'd like to thank the service of the firefighters and the police officers in this room. The work that you all do each day never gets the thanks and appreciation that you all deserve. So I'm so glad to hear that that amendment was able to pass, that you guys met agreement there. We have to keep them safe. We have to keep them where they're able to do their jobs. And I hope that we will continue to have those conversations. Director Hines, my concern was about the amendment that was presented. I do believe that, if there's concerns there are ways to have those conversations. It's been shared before me that those conversations need to be had and taken care of. But I do believe that we have elected a mayor, and the mayor needs to have the ability to decide how he wants to lead the city. And as he builds his team, that is the team that needs to be worked through and with. So again, I'm glad that that amendment did not pass. But again, if there are concerns, please use a more appropriate means to have those conversations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. Ms. Kimberly Lee, and then Ms. Stephanie Vestal.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just going to thank you for not for voting against the amendment. I'm just going to, Kara said basically everything I was going to say, but I'm going to add this little part. You all that say that you listen to your constituents, listen to all of them. It's obvious that you don't. You only listen to those that you choose to listen to and when it's appropriate. The next time, as Vicki Hatter stated, that you all want to bring a sales tax before the residents, how about going before your constituents ahead of time, talking about these things that you want to talk about today, making them aware of the importance of voting for the sales tax? I don't think you all did that together. If you had, then maybe would have had a better outcome. But I think you should do that more often. Don't wait until an election. Do it now, maybe 2025. Just talk about the needs of the city, how voting for a sales tax in the future can help the city continue to progress, to make sure that our first responders get what they need, and that the city can grow. And Director Hines, we could talk about you all day. We've had a great Christmas, no need to, but you are well aware of the importance of these positions. And the fact that you thought you wanted to eliminate people during this time of year is just very sad. I really want you to work along with the mayor and the directors and the individuals in these positions. If you have not worked with them, as some of us have, then you're really missing out. They are an essential to this city and the programs that you all say you are our directors and support of. So if you are, then be involved. Talk to them, attend things. Then you will see why they need to remain. Thank you. Y'all have a happy new year.
Sky Bauer. Stephanie, I'm sorry, Stephanie. Apologize. I didn't see you over there. I was looking for you.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephanie Vestal. I serve as the Director of Strategy and External Affairs with the Little Rock School District. In my role, I work closely with the Chief Education Officer on several important and impactful initiatives. I know and appreciate that you all have struck down the motion, so I'll be brief, but I wanted to make sure that that this board understands the value of the Chief Education Officer. As the city works to maintain and build partnerships with entities to support the education of residents, the Chief Education Officer serves an integral part in collaboration with the school district. I want to emphasize the importance of the Little Rock School District having a strategic partnership with the city of Little Rock, so thank you for voting that amendment down.
Thank you so much. Mr. Sky Bauer. Then after that, we have Blake Tierney. Then the last is Darrell Lee.
Good afternoon, and thank you for giving us a chance to speak. Most people know me a little bit, know a little bit about my story. About 5 years ago, I left a pretty decent career in technology to go to work for communities, and now I serve as a community school coordinator with the Little Rock School District. I was really shocked to hear about this amendment where 4 positions were being cut. During my almost 5 years of volunteering, I have experience with every one of those positions, including serving as a commissioner and former chair of the Racial and Cultural Diversity Commission. So I'm very well aware of how important those positions are and how they serve a good majority of the citizens of Little Rock, a majority of which no longer look like me here in Little Rock. Those citizens are every bit as important as anyone else. I want to say something special about our Chief Education Officer, Jennifer Glasgow. We had an initiative for McDermott Elementary School, where I'm currently employed, to become a community school almost 2 years ago. And Jennifer has been there with us every step of the way, from the very first email that I sent her to our first meeting with Principal Dial, where we voiced our desire to become a community school, to the next 1.5 years to almost 2 years as we paddled steadily toward that. And since that time, Jennifer has proven to be an invaluable asset to our school, attending every single event that we have, always there to support, help, coach, mentor, give us guidance when we need to. And as a result, this year alone, above last year, we've reduced our chronic absenteeism rate by 12%, over 12% actually. Our test scores for our students have improved. We've fed several families to help them overcome some immediate financial difficulties that they're having. I get to look in those kids' faces every day and see that we're making a difference. Every day I walk into school, I can't count the number of kids who want to come up and give a hug because they feel seen and appreciated and heard. That's a direct result We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Jennifer, and she's one of our closest allies. These positions are extremely important. They shouldn't be cut for any kind of, political gamesmanship or whatever. Disagreements with the mayor, I get all that stuff. I get that it happens, but there are real lives at stake here. A lot of our students, 93% of our students, are lower income. Many of them have layers of trauma, from the pandemic to the tornado, which destroyed so many homes, difficulties at home. We're making a difference. I understand that there's a big pushback against public education these days, but make no mistake, these kids, they don't have the same opportunities that everyone else does. Giving them a voucher is the same thing as offering me a free cruise, but expecting me to pay the hotel and any other airfare and any other accommodations. Some people, it's not going to matter to a lot of kids. The ones that are at our school, that's the choice that they have, and we're going to make every difference that we can for them. We need Jennifer. I can't imagine doing the work without her. That is an invaluable position. Thank you so much for voting down that amendment, and thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tierney, then Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee will be the last card that we have after Mr. Tierney.
Thank you, Mayor and City Board. I was here for a few different reasons. The first was to stand in solidarity with the firefighters. I'm grateful to hear that there's come to an agreement. That being said, the issues that Director Peck has raised are ones that I hope that you do address, as Director Phillips mentioned, as top priority at the top of 2025. These are, as was mentioned, health and safety issues. We need to address those. As Mr. Stallings mentioned, the safety of our firefighters is the safety of our city. So please prioritize that. Second, I was here to speak against the amendment that Director Hines proposed. I'm grateful that that has been knocked down, rejected. That being said, and I'll agree with what has been said by other residents about why we need to keep some of these positions. That being said, statements that were made on Monday by Director Hines about positions, about efficiencies, about what we need to do to save money are correct. When I was running for office and speaking across the city to residents, people were talking a lot about what are we seeing as a result of what we're paying into the city. What am I going to get back for paying more? As we saw with the vote, people were hurt by the financial situation that we have in the country right now, and many of that was what led to the rejection of the sales tax. But more than that, people wanted to know what is going to happen. And as much as was done to educate and to inform and to speak and to be at meetings from May forward, there are still questions about where are we going to have savings? What are we going to do with the money that we have right now so that we can have the most impact? So I would encourage as soon as possible to have those really hard conversations, those really hard glances at budget across the administration across different offices to look at where there can be savings. And I mentioned this in a meeting weeks ago, that too often decisions are being made about budget items where there is no data to support those items. There has been no public presentation of data to support whether we should continue investing in certain items. Early in January is going to come the contract for ShotSpotter. That's another $150,000. We know that that has no benefit. The costs outweigh the benefits financially, ethically, and so on. We have seen cities across this country reject it. So I'm going to urge you to reject it. You're going to see me again to speak on that. But that is just one example of many things that we do not have the data to support. So I urge you to have those conversations to see the data behind these decisions. Where are we actually having impact? Where can the residents of the city see that their money is making a difference in their lives? The third thing I wanted to speak on is related to that as well. Last week, with the first reading, there was conversations about public engagement and public discussion. Part of it was a reason why it was rejected. And there was comment that this has been the process every year. But two pieces of that. One has already been mentioned by Ms. Lee, that there's been a lot of discussion that has come up at the last minute. Director Lewis, you brought that up on Monday. We need to have a board that is being upfront and having these conversations as soon as possible. We can't keep having these disagreements that are clouded in political games. The residents of the city deserve better. So I ask you to do better in that regard. But also, when we're talking about the sales tax in our budget, we cannot wait until November to have the conversation start. We can't have a proposal that is sent to the residents that is built behind the scenes. We need the residents to be part of the budget making process on the front end. It is not enough to have a budget or a tax proposal that we are asking residents to have buy-in on. They need to have their voice at the table for those decisions. My job has been, over the last decade, working in nonprofits and government agencies, a lot of them to make them more effective and more efficient, but especially more responsive to community. There are best practices on how to do this, and the city is not doing it. And that includes the board. That includes each of the elected officials that are up here. We need to do better about, as Ms. Lee said, coming to residents and having the conversations about what it is that needs to be in our budget. What are our priorities? And what I heard most of all is that we need to focus on our basic city services. We need to focus on our streets. We need to focus on our safety. We need to focus on trash. But we also need to make sure that, as I said earlier, our firefighters and our city employees, their safety means our safety as well. As was mentioned before, it means our education. So I'm urging you, talk to your residents. Have a people's budget, a real budget that is grounded in what residents want and need. And have one that is grounded in data that you can say, this is actually having an impact and residents can feel it. And they're gonna come here and speak openly and proudly for the budget and sales tax across the board, across the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lee, Reverend Lee, I'm sorry.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Board. Everyone has pretty much said everything that I was going to say. My firefighters, I support you in your fight, not just for equipment, but for better working conditions. The same goes across the board for all city positions. But I just want to implore upon you today. When chaos comes out of this room, it spreads across the city. When harmony comes out of this room, harmony goes across the city. Analyze how you're going to lead and govern in the year 2025 and beyond. The city deserves the best to come out of this room from the people that we've sent to be in this room. That's really all I have to say, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Director Hines, your hand up?
Mayor and everybody here, I appreciate the comments. I think I have to strenuously object with some of this. Is not a waste of time. This is how government should be done in the public, not behind closed doors. We have lots of behind-the-scenes conversations with many folks. And I want to say this to the Flame president. I'd like to have your contact information because I don't have it. I have a good relationship with the BPOA. I have a good relationship with the firefighters and the FOP. So it's a two-way street. Don't ever be afraid. I'll give you my number. Don't ever be afraid to reach out to me. I think that it's very interesting in the time since the mayor's gotten elected that the changes in the Office of Executive Administration have been gradual. We've approved them, as the mayor likes to point out to us. We are the policy body of the city. We are also the financial stewards of the city. We only have one vote. This budget is very important. And if, as the mayor continues to remind us, he proposes it, we approve it, it's on us. Well, I find it very interesting that anytime we have harmony is when we agree with the mayor. When there's disharmony and chaos, it's when we disagree with the mayor, and then we either become dysfunctional or racist. That couldn't be farther from the truth. That's what an honest opinion, a difference of opinion about how the city's run. And as I looked at the budget and the Office of Executive Administration, and to have everybody, and I appreciate the school district, I'm sure a school district that has twice the budget when you combine Pulaski County and Little Rock School District of the city of Little Rock. Twice the budget. Look at the financials, guys. And we have carved out a position that was grant funded to begin with, and we all supported it. I supported the community schools. We've got grants that fund most of that. My communication to the mayor, and when I approved it, was this should be a great test case, and if it works, then the school district should take over the programs and do it. By God, they've got plenty of money. Look at your personal property taxes. The majority of it goes to our school districts, to Pulaski County and to Little Rock School District. My wards combine both of those. So to stand up here and say we're cutting something, when I look at all the policy jobs, as the mayor says, everybody reports to him, he's got department heads. This body should be the policy staters. And that's fine if he wants to have some advisors. We approved a chief of staff when Mayor Stola was here. And Director Adcock, I think, objected to it, and maybe one other director. I don't remember. It's been a few years. Because she was afraid of the potential conflict it would create between the city manager, who by our ordinance is the chief administrative officer. To me, that's who the chief of staff should be. And I felt that way when we approved it for Mayor Stola. He had only one other staff member, I think. But I think it's disingenuous at best to throw up that is that, you know, it's okay to have disagreement. And this was a proverbial hill I was willing to die on. The amendments I made were heartfelt, that if we don't look at what the voters told us through 2 sales tax elections on a 60-40 vote down, no on any more money, you've got to do better with what you've got. If we don't start with our policy and administrative functions of the city, we have a long history of this city when we've had reduction in the forces, a cut in the frontline workers, and not the managers and the administrative staff. We've got to send a clear message, and that's fine. That's why I proposed this amendment. I felt that it was necessary to send a message to our voters that we hear you. I have 28,000 folks that I represent, and they overwhelmingly said, we don't like the direction or how you're spending the money, our sales tax money that we give you, our property tax money that we give you. So, you know, and this is a initiative, and if we don't listen to the voters on this board and hear what they're telling us, then that's on us coming the next election cycle, which will be coming up in 2 years. But, you know, I still don't believe this is the right budget, and I'll be voting no on it. I'll call a question, Mayor.
Director Phillips.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to respond briefly. Just respond briefly to what Director Hines said. Anybody that's talked to me after the sales tax know how hurt I was by it. I thought it was important for the city to have the resources so we don't have the fights we're having today. So truly, anyone talk to me about it? No, I was hurt by it. So I agree with you, Director Hines. We do need to listen to our citizens. But by no means has anyone said or insinuated that the sales tax failed because of these 5 positions that are in the Office of Executive Administration. So to try to connect those 2 dots, that's a reach. Now, do we need to be more responsive to what people are saying on why the sales tax didn't pass? Absolutely, because it failed, you got to do something different. But to say that it didn't pass because of these 5 positions, who residents that came and told us how essential it is to them living in this city, is a reach that I couldn't let go unstated without me saying something in response to that. That's not what happened. Sales tax, I mean, we can pontificate on why it failed, talk to different people, a lot of different reasons. But to tie that to firing 5 people who do work that are helpful to the people in the city is not where we need to go, and I was proud to vote no on that. So I just wanted to make sure that it was clear to Director Hines and to the public.
Director Lewis.
I want to give those same sentiments. I have had numerous conversations, and I am very diverse when it comes to the people that I'm talking to, and I cannot say at all that anyone has expressed that these 5 positions should be on the table to save more money in the budget. What I heard was streets, drainage, public safety, youth, and seniors. You know, advantages to go and help towards those operations and not necessarily these 5 positions. As one of the residents mentioned earlier, those positions bring so much value. And if others who are not engaged with them, you are missing out because of the work that they provide. And it is being more inclusive across this city. We are so divided, and the mayor is trying to bring together unity, and that's what it's going to take. It's diverse positions to reach various pockets across this city so we can have a unified front. So I am so glad that majority of my colleagues voted no against this amendment.
Director Miller? Hold on one second. There you go.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me say a couple of things. First, I didn't vote for the amendment to the budget because I think those positions are important. But let's not fool ourselves. What Director Hines was also proposing is something I've heard week after week after week. That's homeless outreach and that's code enforcement. I can't tell you how many times ACO has came up before us talking about we don't have enough code officers. I can't tell you how many times Acorn and other residents that I talk to, and I probably go to more neighborhood association meetings than probably anybody here, with the exception of probably Director Adcock, about we need to do something about the homeless situation because it's growing. So let's not just pile all on and say what we were looking at wasn't really something that needs a broader discussion, because we're talking about more code enforcement officers. We don't want more big country chateaus. We hear that all the time. Acorn comes up here, ACO comes up here every meeting and talks about that. I hear it from my constituents all the time about what we're going to do with our homeless outreach. Money was going towards that. And so Director Phillips wasn't the only one hurt by the sales tax not passing. I was too, and I'm sure a lot of our board members were also, because we had money in that sales tax initiative to deal with more code enforcement officers, to deal with more homeless outreach. So let's take a look at the bigger picture and just not pile on, because again, I wasn't in favor of cutting these positions, so I voted against that amendment. But I certainly see the need for what Director Hines was talking about with code enforcement and with homeless outreach, and I'm sure every board member up here has heard that too. So I wanted to say that, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Miller.
Let me thank you, Mayor. If I can co-sign Director Miller and add some clarity, I agree that those are two different issues, though. So we're conflating issues now. Do we need to address the code enforcement issue? Yes, I've been the one beating the table, saying we need more of that. So I'm with you 100%. But to say it comes this way, that's the problem. And obviously, if the sales tax passed, we don't have this conversation. But to say that we're going to address this issue by cutting services that we heard today, and I'm sure other people can get up here and testify to, is essential to how they live in this city. That's where the disconnect is. So I'm with you that we need to take a bigger picture, look at some other things in 2025 going forward. But to say that is the solution by cutting those people and then moving it there, that's not the way to do this. So that's why I voted no. So I agree with you. Those are still needs, but it's not only it's not only the ends, it's the means. And this means was inappropriate in my opinion.
I think we're on the same page.
Okay. Director Hines.
Again, Director Phillips, there was no proposal to cut any services to anybody. All of these services, as you saw from my amendment and the email that Tom sent out to several of you, is that these services should already be provided by departments that already have budgets and shouldn't be increasing our spend out of the general fund when we could obviously use that for something else. The truth of the matter is we've had 2 failed sales taxes. To think that we're going to go out and get one approved in the next year is pretty ridiculous. I'm telling you. You haven't heard it from the voters, what's happened nationwide, and what everybody's saying is do more with what you've got. Conserve the money we're giving you and spend it better, more wisely, and be more efficient with it. So in my opinion, this is the pinnacle of inefficiency. When you already have departments who should be doing this function, community schools, which was originally housed in our PIT funds, has a budget of $5.5 million. If it's so important to everybody and you guys want to do it, then do it. I just think it's pretty ludicrous that we have two school districts that when you combine their budgets, double or triple the budgets, and if you want to throw charter schools into it, money's not the issue. Having safe neighborhoods and safe streets builds better school districts. And you get those by dealing with the homelessness issue, dealing with code enforcement, and making sure we have a public safety apparatus. The schools will fall right in with that. And I just disagree that we were cutting services to anybody. If you can't deliver what we're doing within our departments we've already got, then we've got bigger issues. And I'm going to quit beating the dead horse. Again, I call the question, Mayor.
There has to be a second. I haven't heard a second.
Second.
There's a motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it for calling the question. Members of the board, we've had 3 readings on this budget. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Nay. Ayes have it. Ayes have it. We'll do a roll call.
Director Adcock? Director Miller? Yes. Director Peck? Yes. Director Hines? No. Director Lewis?
Yes.
Director Wyrick?
Yes.
Director Campuris? Director Phillips?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Webb?
Aye.
7-2.
Members of the board, the motion passes. Due to not having 8, we cannot do the.
Mayor, it's a separate vote.
Oh, the emergency? Yeah.
Yeah, and so I don't know how that would turn out unless.
Well, we'll
you
try
have
it.
a vote.
Now is a motion for the emergency clause. Is there a second? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. We have the emergency clause. Members of the city board, first and foremost, we've had a lively debate that's been fully transparent. I do want to share a few brief things. I won't get into a long speech, but I will share a few brief things as we anticipate 2025. It is my role as mayor and the chief executive officer alongside the acting city manager to propose a budget that's fully balanced based on the needs and the perspectives of 210,000, close to 210,000 residents here in the city of Little Rock and close to 2,500 city employees. I want to continue to share my appreciation to the men and women of both the Little Rock Police and Fire Departments. I think it is on record that my administration, alongside this city board, that what I'm about to say cannot happen without each of you. Over the past 5 to 6 years, we've given historic raises for both police and fire that they've never seen in the history of the city of Little Rock government, and we're grateful for that opportunity. What I do want to share is as we move forward, listening to different things as we go towards the 2025 and our state of the city, we'll share again a balanced budget. We also will share our priorities. Our priorities are bread and butter issues for the residents of Little Rock. Those are my bosses, those are your all's bosses. They hire us, the residents of Little Rock hire us, and we have to be responsive to their needs. I think we all know, and I'm very grateful to enjoy and being blessed by God that we've been able to win victoriously in a very decisive manner, and we've shared different things that we've heard from the residents of Little Rock. I think we all know, and I'll even somewhat agree with Director Hines, that the economy right now, at least the feeling of it, has had a lot to do with the sales tax initiative. We'll continue to grow the jobs here in the city of Little Rock that we've done, close to historic 12,000 new jobs, $841 million of new payroll and investment to the city of Little Rock, close to $2 billion as well. And so when we talk about those things, we have to make certain that it truly impacts the residents, that they're getting more of those jobs as well, not just from a regional perspective. Clearly, we want to make certain that we serve the region. But as we continue to focus on the economy, that's one of the main things that the residents have shared, is that they didn't feel the time was right to pass the sales tax. They overwhelmingly, as I often joke, Director Phillips, who was an avid supporter of the sales tax, overwhelmingly chose him with 68% of the vote. And in the same vein, when he was one of the stalwart ambassadors alongside of Director Peck and Miller, Compuris, and B.J. Wyrick, and everyone else, Director Kathy Webb, who all voted for it as well, and Director Hines, everyone on this board voted for it, to my knowledge. Director Lewis as well. Everyone voted for this, and so clearly it was about the economy. And so let's not conflate the issues, because Lord willing, when I run for re-election, we'll show the same demonstration that we've shown the past two elections. But what I will share is, as we look towards the sales tax, if there's any type of news, I agree. We're going to have to spend more than May to November. We spent May to November meeting with the residents of Little Rock. We also spent the previous year, because we've been talking about the sales tax since it lost in 2021. We'll probably have to take at least a year and having those conversations and engaging about those basic services and needs that they want to see a part of that process. And so we will work with you all to figure out that's something we want to do in 26 or 27. More than likely 27, unless the board wants to look at it earlier than that. But I think Director Hines is right. To do something in 2025 would be not listening to the residents of Little Rock, who said that the economy is not the right time to increase taxes. And so we want to make certain the residents know that we understand that the economy is not fit to increase the taxes at that time. With that being stated, I want to wish everyone that had a blessed Christmas as we move forward, and a happy Hanukkah. Oh, we got two more before I finish. Director Webb. And I'll come back with my final comments after this.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. I just want to say one thing about the budget. I have asked on multiple occasions that when we send out the calendar for meetings for next year, we include dates for budget discussion on there, and it's not an afterthought, that we try to schedule at the end of the year, and that we schedule at least 2, preferably 3 days for budget hearings, and start when we send the calendar out. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, we will. I believe Emily already has that prepared. Is that correct, Emily?
Yes, yes.
Yes, so we have that. And thank you for your advice and counsel on that. Director Compuris.
I want to thank Emily for all the great work she's done. This is your last meeting, I believe.
It is, yes.
So thank you. You've been a great asset for us, and good luck in your new job.
Thank you very much.
Director Peck.
Well, I promise it's the last thing I'm going to say today about the firefighters, but I just want the board and the firefighters to know I am not finished. I'm going to put, excuse me, 100% of my attention on the fire stations to address these issues. I think we have the attention, you have the attention of the whole board now. That is my oath, my promise, and my commitment. And thank you for your service.
Thank you, Director Peck. All right. And again, members of the board, we will have the schedule for 2025 here shortly. We also will be giving you some other communication in regards to some positions that I've already shared with you, but that'll happen by the end of this month, that you all received that communication already about. And that being said, is there a motion to adjourn? There's a motion. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Meeting adjourned.